You know someone who used to text you every day. Then one week, nothing. A month later, still nothing. They didn't block you. They're just gone. What actually happens in someone's mind when they decide to stop reaching out completely? Psychology has a clear answer, and it's not what most people assume. When someone stops reaching out, it's rarely about you specifically. It's about them finally respecting their own effort. Social psychologists call this relational equity, the mental scoreboard we all keep without realizing it. Every time someone initiates contact, checks in, or keeps a conversation alive, their brain registers effort. When that effort isn't matched over time, something shifts. Not anger, not resentment, just quiet withdrawal. They stop reaching out because continuing felt like convincing someone to care. Here's what makes this interesting. The decision to stop isn't emotional, it's strategic. Research on reciprocity theory shows that humans are wired to mirror energy. When someone consistently receives low engagement, their brain recalibrates the relationship's value. They're not being petty. They're being efficient with their emotional resources. Think about it this way. If you knocked on a door 20 times and it only opened twice, you'd eventually walk away. That's not giving up. That's learning. But there's a deeper layer most people miss. Stopping contact is also an act of self-preservation. Psychologists link this to boundary enforcement, the ability to protect your mental space from one-sided dynamics. People who stop reaching out aren't cold. They're emotionally intelligent enough to recognize when they're over-functioning in a relationship. They understand that connection should feel natural, not forced. And here's where it gets psychologically complex. The moment they stop, something unexpected happens inside them. Relief, not sadness. Studies on emotional labor show that maintaining unbalanced relationships drains cognitive energy. When someone finally steps back, their stress drops, their focus sharpens. They're not losing a friend. They're reclaiming bandwidth. So what drives someone to that breaking point? What internal shift makes them decide enough is enough? The psychology behind that final decision reveals something most people never consider about how we actually value ourselves. It starts with a realization that feels almost physical. They notice they're always the one asking how you're doing, always the one suggesting plans, always the one keeping the thread alive. And one day they just stop. Not out of spite, out of curiosity. They want to see if you'll notice, if you'll reach out, if the relationship can survive without them carrying it. This is what psychologists call the reciprocity test. When someone stops initiating, they're essentially asking, does this connection exist without my effort? The answer usually comes quickly. Silence. And that silence tells them everything they needed to know. But here's what shifts internally during that silence. Their self-concept strengthens. Cognitive dissonance theory explains this perfectly. They were holding two conflicting beliefs. This person matters to me, but this person doesn't prioritize me. Stopping contact resolves that tension. They're no longer trying to force importance where it doesn't naturally exist. Their mental clarity improves because they're finally aligning their actions with reality. And contrary to what you might think, they don't sit around hoping you'll notice. They move forward. Behavioral psychology shows that when we remove ourselves from unrewarding situations, our brain redirects that energy toward more fulfilling connections. They start investing in people who reciprocate naturally. They build relationships that don't require constant maintenance. They learn what mutual effort actually feels like. The most misunderstood part? They don't hate you. They're not angry. They've just accepted that some relationships aren't meant to be sustained by one person's will alone. That acceptance isn't cold. It's mature. It's the difference between chasing connection and allowing it to exist where it's meant to. So when someone stops reaching out, understand what really happened. They didn't lose interest in connection. They gained respect for their own presence. They chose peace over persistence. And honestly, that's not a loss, that's growth. The people who stay in your life without being chased are the ones who are supposed to be there all along. It's not about cutting people off. It's about recognizing your worth doesn't live in someone else's effort. When someone stops reaching out, they're not being difficult. They're being deliberate. They're protecting their energy for connections that feel like conversations, not campaigns. And that kind of self-awareness, that's not distance, that's wisdom.